in forums like this. As I'll talk about in a moment, as Tababu said, elections are incredibly important, and engaging the community at this time is a terrific opportunity. So I don't know if folks know here that Takoma Park is actually a pretty unique place for many reasons. But do people know who get to vote in Takoma Park? Does anybody know? So 16 and 17-year-olds actually get to vote in Takoma Park. We're pretty unique in that in our municipal elections. And the other thing is that undocumented residents who live in the city also get to vote in Takoma Park. Yes, and that's very, very important to all of us who work and live in this community, because we believe that we need to make sure our government is really representative of everybody who lives here. And if you live here but can't vote and hold us accountable, the folks who get to sit up here during the evening, then do you really have a voice in your community? And so it's very important that we make sure that everyone who lives here, works here, contributes to our community, and is impacted by our policies has a voice in our community. But as Tababu said, it's kind of a two-way street, right? So we have these policies, but we also need to make sure people know about them. And so I try to do a lot, get out in the community to tell people who is able to vote, and I hope you all will join me in that, in spreading the news, letting people know who can vote in Takoma Park, and who knows, maybe we can get it to spread a little bit to other municipalities and other locations. You may have heard actually that in Ohio, it's right, the Democratic primary is everybody's watching what's going to happen between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Well, a judge just decided that 17-year-olds can vote in the Ohio Democratic primary if they turn 18 by November. So making these decisions, right, that's going to be big in Ohio. So deciding who actually gets the vote is, very important. So this is really ad-libbing for a while. Thank you. The other thing I should let you know in Takoma Park, for folks who live here and live in the area, is we made a change recently. We have our city council meetings on Wednesday evenings. Now they start at 7:30. And when our council meetings start, the first half hour of our council meetings are for public comment. So you can come and for 3 minutes stand at the podium and raise concerns, things that you'd like. We'd like to hear things that you like, as well as things that you think need to be made different. All right, now we're ready, okay.
So I'm gonna stand here.
Okay, all right. All right, well, welcome to Takoma Park, and thank you very much for coming this afternoon. I want to thank the organizers, the African community of Montgomery County, for hosting this event and providing members of the community and all of us the opportunity to hear from those who are running for elected office. I want to say thank you also to the folks we're going to hear from soon who are running for elected office, because we all know public service is a very rewarding position, but it takes sacrifice, and in particular it takes sacrifice for people's families. So I wanted to say thank you to them as well. Every election is important, as we were just talking about, but in particular this year there is a great deal at stake. And here in Takoma Park we have a front row seat to what's happening not just here in our community, but regionally and across the country. Takoma Park is a very diverse community. But just as in other parts of the country, what we're seeing is that the divide between the haves and have-nots is growing. And we need to make sure that we stay a diverse community, but that we also stay an inclusive community. And everyone feels part of this community. And in order to do that, we need our city government, we need county, we need state, and we need the federal government to all be working together to ensure that we cut that gap, that there isn't a huge gap between the haves and have-nots, to make sure that we are really truly addressing institutionalized racism in our community, and to make sure that those who are most in need are not left behind. Because our communities will only thrive when everyone has the opportunity to fulfill their potential and their dreams. This election is also incredibly critical because we saw the impact of fear and hatred in our own community this past fall. We lost one of our neighbors and community members, Anita Datar, to a terrorist attack while she was working abroad to help young women and girls. This was a woman who we lost way too soon, and we will feel this for a very long time. But the response in our community and the response of her family was not one of fear or cause for retribution. Instead, while others started equating Muslim with terrorist, we in Takoma Park passed a resolution reaffirming our commitment to welcoming refugees and expressed our opposition to the incendiary rhetoric being espoused by many across the country. As they seek to turn fear and seek to turn victims into terrorists. We reminded the world that approaching issues such as this with compassion and empathy are key to building strong, inclusive, and healthy communities. So all of this is happening here, right here in Takoma Park, but it's also happening in cities and towns across the country. And the candidates we send to Congress over the next few years are going to face these challenges and many more. And they will make decisions that will chart the course of our future. But it's not really just our future. This is the future of our sons and daughters that they are talking about and going to set for us. So to meet the challenges that lie ahead, I want to pass some advice on to those who you will hear from in a few minutes as you ask them questions. And this is a quote from Toni Morrison, who said, "As you enter positions of trust and power, dream a little before you think." So thank you very much and welcome. And I hope you have a good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Ngozi Azubike and I am your moderator for this afternoon. Before we get started, I'd like to just state a few house rules and ground rules that we're going to operate under today. First thing I want to mention is that each of the candidates will be given equal time to present their platform and to answer 3 questions. The candidates are not asked to agree or disagree with the platforms or the positions of the organizations that put this event together today. Also, I want to let you know that I, as the moderator, I am not going to be asking them to, I'm not going to be approving or disapproving what they are talking about. They're simply going to state on their own behalf. We will not be asking them any leading questions that would suggest a particular desired outcome from them or answer from them. Also want to let you know that if you brought with you partisan information, they are not allowed in this auditorium, but you can have them over at the Azalea room around the corner. And finally, I want to ask you to please refrain from making noise or clapping during the forum, but you can clap at the very beginning or at the end. We just want to give the candidates maximum time to speak and to answer your questions. So with that said, we extended invitations to all of the individuals, the candidates that are running for the U.S. Senate seat, what is now Barbara Mikulski's seat. 4 out of those, initially 4 of them responded and agreed to join us today. A couple of them had other commitments. So those that are here today will be speaking and addressing the immigrant community. We asked them to spend 5 minutes today to engage you on their political platform and to talk about 3 topics that are of interest to the immigrant community. These topics include immigration, language access, it includes education opportunities, affordable housing, and economic development. And as they talk to you this afternoon, I'm asking you to please listen keenly for what they're saying so that you know what you need to do as you vote. The candidates are Mark McNicholas, Violet Staley, and Ed Tynes. And I'm going to invite them to come up now. As they settle in, I am going to ask Mark McNicholas to please begin. He has 5 minutes to address you. Each one of them will have 5 minutes to address you. And we're going to go with Mark McNicholas. Violet Staley, and Ed Tynes, in that order.
Hi, I'm Mark McNicholas, and I'm running for the United States Senate. Thank you for the opportunity to come here today and let you know a little bit about me and a little bit about my views. Currently I do mortgage loans, so I have the opportunity to speak to people and take a look at their current situation, and I talk to them about what troubles they may be having now, what their goals are for the future, what troubles they may have had in the past. So I always enjoy looking at their situation and seeing what we can do to help, and it's given me an interesting perspective on what causes problems and then what causes things to get better. So I also have this in my own life experience. I grew up in a working class neighborhood in Baltimore City. Firsthand, I know a lot of the struggles that come along with a situation like that. And my mom was a teen mom, and my father passed away as a direct result of his drug use. And just those type of situations are things that kids face every day today, and it breaks my heart and something that I want to try to help with. I watched my mom deal with the issues that come along with being a single mom of 4 kids, struggling with her own alcohol and drug addiction, and happy to say that she said, "This is enough. This stops with me." This April 1st, she'll celebrate 26 years clean and sober. So just extremely proud of her for that, and that she's taken those steps and kind of instilled that in me. When I was looking at this election, I said, you know what? There's all this divisiveness in Washington. As a people, we're not that far apart. When I look at Washington, I see people that don't like each other, and they're just way on each extreme. And I think as a people, we can get along, and it's something that we're a lot closer than what we see there in Washington. So I didn't see any candidate that was talking about that, and I said, you know what, this stops with me. I want to throw my hat in the ring and run for the United States Senate. So I love Maryland, and I'm looking forward to representing you in the United States Senate. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Violet Staley, and I'm running for U.S. Senator to continue my lifelong mission of public service. I have volunteered in every community in which I've lived and advocated for neighbors and families. I took my volunteerism to my children's school when I lived in Harford County in the 90s. I coordinated the multicultural and actually created the human relations education, which brought people from different countries and backgrounds together. My goal is not just tolerance, but appreciation and respect. This, of course, is one of the goals of education. I was raised by the village in my hometown of Pacoima, California, which is a place where Black people were allowed to buy, the only place in the San Fernando Valley in the 50s. I was held accountable by elders who wanted the best for me and checked my behavior when I was away from home. Even though my mother only completed high school, education was a priority for her, and she taught us something new every day. She couldn't afford to take us to other countries. We didn't take vacations, but she invited students from other countries to come and live in our home when they were studying here or working here. My life was enriched because of this, and I have continued this outreach with my own family. I think that having a registry of residents who would like to welcome people from other countries into their homes would be an asset to every community. In my neighborhood in Landover, I've sponsored community block parties, invited local police and government officials so that the residents can get to know each other and that they are aware of our county's resources. This contributes to communication and security in our neighborhood. I mentor children and young people, and I had a traffic light placed at the corner of Garrett Morgan Boulevard and Gibbs Way for public safety. I was told that they would never put a stoplight there because there was one not too far away. I shared with them that Garrett Morgan invented the traffic light. So he can have as many traffic lights on the street as he wants. I am continuing the village that was given to me. America is a nation of immigrants and freedom of religion. From the Native Americans who welcomed the Pilgrims to the many groups that have migrated here. Immigration with a path to citizenship should be a law in this country, providing the tools necessary to be successful. These include housing, jobs, and English classes. I was glad to learn that the African Women's Council provides information on all of these services and more. Equivalency education credit should be given for the education and experience that the potential citizens bring to our country. I advocate a living wage as opposed to a minimum wage of $15 an hour for families, a family of 4. They have to meet their basic needs and perhaps have some left over for emergencies. Women should be paid the same as men, equal pay for equal work. Quality, affordable early childhood development programs will help parents have peace of mind and give all children a head start. It will make workers more productive, which contributes to the profitability of the company. On-site childcare is very convenient. And our public schools should be state-of-the-art, clean, and safe. I advocate partnerships with high schools through work experience programs with community colleges. My husband and son are veterans, so I'm very familiar with the concerns and the frustrations that veterans have with the VA, with the Veterans Administration. Our veterans should never feel disrespected and should get their appointments, doctor's appointments and benefit appointments in a timely manner. More credit should be given to them for the skills they have earned and acquired towards a job and or a degree. The VA should hire vets. Churches should be involved in promoting understanding amongst the races by joining together in community outreach and recreation. We can also mentor and give academic tutoring to students. That's all I'm going to say right now, so I look forward to getting questions from you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Tennis. I'm a Democrat running for the U.S. Senate. In 2010, I decided to run. I knew Barbara was ill. I knew she wasn't going to seek election this term. So I got experience and practice and joined Mr. Cardin during his election cycle. I'm from a collective, We the People. And I'm rising up from We the People. Because I don't care what color you are, we're all the same. Every single one of us. I ran a humanitarian aid food bank for a number of years. In 2004, my little group of 5 people, with the grace of God and the Spirit behind us, tried to outgive God the Father, because He challenges us in that way. We couldn't, but we handed out over $14 million worth of aid without collecting a dime of assistance from anybody. America is very, very wealthy, and there's a lot to be given to everyone in need. It just needs to be handed out evenly, uniformly, without discrimination. Why am I running? I'm running because I have compassion for my neighbors in Maryland. I'm running because I love this country, and I feel wholeheartedly about the men who died and women who died serving our freedom. I'm running because I want to give things back. That's my nature. I'm a giver. See, in 1787, the notion of electoral vote would have been struck down if they had the technology that we have today. But now's the time to be brave. As a republic, currently, we the people elect our senators, where we should also elect our president. As your senator, I will be bound to uphold and defend the Constitution and Bill of Rights. As your transparent representative, I will use the internet to search the will of the voters, to formulate a uniform question of yea or nay, subject to a public vote, a vote made from the comfort of your own home on every issue. My final vote will be between God and me alone, a God that holds me accountable for every word that comes out of my mouth, as you shall do also through my transparent use of the internet. You see, your life, your liberty, and your pursuit of happiness rests in your hands. I will ensure that we are no longer subjects to a federal government that has progressively assumed authority over our rights. I stand before you as the only Senate candidate in this presidential election that will surrender the authority of governance to a public vote as the Constitution dictates. We are to govern these United States. The state is of equal power and authority to the federal government. Our federal government has stepped into the jurisdiction of the state and us. They stepped outside their boundaries. Our president, who is in the executive branch, has the authority to be an executive for the federal government, period. Whose fault is it? Where did we get this far? How did we get along this path that we've wandered off onto? It's not Republicans' fault. It's not Democrats' fault. It's our fault. Complacency. We didn't vote people in properly. 60% of us don't even vote. It's our job to get out there and get these people to vote for your freedom. That's what I'm offering you. True governance and freedom to have a voice in Washington to say yay or nay about an issue that is brought forth that's going to affect your life. Thank you. Vote A.
So we just heard from those that are running for the U.S. Senate office, the seat that is being vacated by Barbara Mikulski. We'd like to thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
And as our African immigrant and other immigrant communities make their decisions as to how they vote, welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is the Congressional District 08 candidates that are running for Chris Van Hollen's current position. The candidates are Jeffrey Jones, Shelley Skolnick, Kumar Barve, Anasol Gutierrez, William Jawando, Kathleen Matthews, and Jamie Raskin. Each candidate will have a minute and a half for opening statement and a minute and a half for closing statement at the end. They will also have a minute and a half to answer each of the 3 questions that will be posed to them. During Q&A, they will have 30 seconds to respond to questions from the audience. And if there's any rebuttal to be had, they will have 15 seconds to make the rebuttal. We will begin now with opening statement from Jeffrey Jones.
I'm Jeff Jones, and I'm a Republican running for District 8 for Congress. I want to let you know that I've grown up in Montgomery County, went to college in Carroll County, and I'm a pastor and have been for 40 years. I wanted to run because I was really upset with the way in which there are gridlocks in Congress, the way candidates insult each other, the way it seems like that we're just not getting anything done for ordinary people. And I believe that the name House of Representatives ought to have a representative, somebody who understands what real people are like. And because I've been a pastor, I've been with folks through all of the challenges that they face. I know the hopes and dreams and plans, and I want to try to encourage that and to remove the roadblocks and to create an environment where people can cooperate and compromise and work together for the common good. I was born in Baltimore in 1951, which puts me in an interesting age group, and my parents were missionaries to the Congo. So I spent several years in the Belgian Congo, and that has influenced and helped me to understand the challenges and the opportunities that we have for immigration, because it's a great way to nurture and encourage and bless this great country of ours. Look forward to your questions, and thank you for letting me be here.
And we're just going to work this way, starting next now with Shelley.
Okay, thank you. The federal government is facing a huge budget deficit this year, $540 billion. And you'll hear proposals from various candidates, both here and on TV, for president, with lots of good ideas. Often they want to expand existing programs or new programs. And what we need to do is get to a balanced budget and then expand or add new programs. And we did it not too many years ago in the 1990s when President Clinton and House Speaker Newt Gingrich worked together. I consider myself a moderate, and as a moderate, I find it easy to work with liberals or conservatives since I'm more in the middle. And I think it's that type of candidate, both for Congress, the House, the Senate, the President, that we need to work together to unify the country, to balance the budget, and then address a lot of these concerns that you will raise here today or that others have raised that we simply cannot afford. The deficit, as I said, is $540 billion, which is huge. The national debt is, I don't know if it's 18 trillion or 19 trillion and going up very high. And if the interest rates increase, that's just going to take away money from other federal programs. So my concentration will be on getting a balanced budget within 4 years. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is, ready? Okay, good afternoon. My name is Kumar Barve, and it's a pleasure to be here. Let me tell you a little bit about myself, because I think my family background is something you would find interesting and compelling. My grandfather, Shankar Lakshman Gokhale, was a freedom fighter in India. He was very against British rule. He was the president of a college, and because of his anti-British activities, he was stripped of his college presidency and he was kicked out of the country. Ultimately, he ended up coming to the United States of America in 1911, became a research scientist for the General Electric Corporation, where he and his colleagues were among the people who invented broadcast television technology. In 1920, he became an American citizen, and by 1923, he and other Indian American men in this country were stripped of their citizenship because they weren't white. Now, he had to fight all his way back up to the Supreme Court to get back his citizenship. And you fast forward to my growing up here in Silver Spring, Tacoma Park, Maryland. I was the first Indian American elected to any state legislature in the United States' history, and the first person of color to be a majority leader. And all of this folds into a narrative about my feelings about the importance of immigrant communities, the importance of fostering a spirit of friendship with people who come from other countries and who are different from us. And so I look very much forward to answering your questions and discussing all of these important issues because they relate so deeply to my family history. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ana Sol Gutierrez, and I'm delighted to be here with you. I want to congratulate you for having this forum. I believe it's the first time that I see a group of new Americans, is what I would call the African diaspora in the United States. I believe that it's very important to have these kind of open forums where you can see who we are, you can see what we stand for, and that we get a chance to be engaged in a dialogue with you and your interest. I am also an immigrant. I am from El Salvador. When my family first came here, we didn't come really as immigrants. My father was one of the founding directors of the World Bank and the IMF, and at that time there weren't really any Latinos here. We went back to El Salvador and then came back for a second round, and from that time on I stayed. My family went back, but I was attending public school in Montgomery County, BCC, and asked if I could stay so I could go to college here. And that was the beginning, I think, of this wonderful journey, this opportunity that I have had based on education. I'm an engineer and a chemist, and I believe that that has permitted me to be successful as a woman, as a mother, a single mother of 3, and as a legislator, as well as a professional with 35 years experience. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see you. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces. I'm Will Jawando, candidate in this race, but also a proud son of a father from Lagos, Nigeria, and a mom from Kansas, Hays, Kansas, if you know Kansas. And both of them are similar in this way, even though you might think they're very different. My dad came here on the heels of the Biafran Civil War in the early 1970s, seeking opportunity, which is really the theme of America. Why do people come here? For opportunity, and they leave their country for a lot of reasons, but it's always for opportunity. My mom moved east because the factories in her town had shut down, and she was looking for economic opportunity, also a common theme in our American story. And so I am of African American in the truest sense of the word, I always say, and have been very fortunate to benefit from the great opportunity in this community. As you all know, there are more Africans in this area than any other place in the United States. I was proud to be a co-founder of the African Immigrant Caucus, which actually organized over 2,000 person forum last time 2 years ago when we had a gubernatorial candidate forum. And I think in this race, I bring a unique set of skills to the table. I've worked in Congress with Senator Obama, with Nancy Pelosi, also worked with President Obama in the White House, helped pass health care, worked on critical issues like equal pay for equal work. But I've also grown up right here, the son of a father from Africa who often faced discrimination here and had to navigate those two worlds. And I think what's missing in Congress now are people who understand what working families are going through. And we'll talk a lot about those issues today, but I'm excited to see so many people that are familiar faces. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Et bonjour tous mes amis francophones. Soyez les bienvenus à Takoma Park. And I see our Mayor Stewart is here. Mayor Kate Stewart. Please welcome her. So my name is Jamie Raskin, and I'm the state senator for Silver Spring and Takoma Park. I've done that for 10 years. And I first ran because our state senator at the time, who'd been in for a 32-year period, had introduced a pro-Iraq war resolution, had been supporting the death penalty, had championed electricity deregulation that made everybody's bills go up 60 or 70%. And I said, here I am complaining about the Republicans, and I'm not looking at what's going on in my own party, in the Democratic Party. And so I announced that I would run. All the pundits said that the chances of beating a 32-year incumbent who was president pro tem of the Senate were impossible. And 9 months later, we got 67% of the vote, and all the pundits said my victory was inevitable, because the pundits are never wrong. In that time, we have gotten done everything that I said I wanted to set out to do. We abolished the death penalty in Maryland. We passed marriage equality in Maryland. We reformed mandatory minimum sentences. We restored voting rights to the ex-felons. We passed tough environmental legislation. And I've had on my side a number of African immigrants who've been crucial to my success. One of them is Joseph Eyong, who is our constituency coordinator for the District 20 delegation. Please recognize Joseph for what he has done. He's been with me from the beginning. And Tababu and Sarah Asefa, and they're here. I introduced the first legislation for benefit corporations in America. They are the second benefit corporation on earth, and they've created a model for U.S.-African trade that makes money but also does good at the same time, and I'm happy to discuss that as we go. Thank you.
So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to start the questions right now, and they have a minute and a half to answer each of the questions. There will be 3 questions. And I'd like to address this first question, and we're going to start with Jamie Raskins, and we're going to work our way in the other direction. Is that okay? Very good. First question is as follows. America is a country of immigrants, but our current immigration policies separate families, marginalize the undocumented, and take too long to file for family members. If elected, how important is immigration reform to you? And will you support a comprehensive immigration bill that does not eliminate the diversity visa lottery?
Yes, absolutely. I will support that. I will champion it, and I would consider it an essential dimension of the work of the representative from this district because of our huge and extremely beneficial immigrant population that we have here. So I would be fighting for comprehensive immigration reform the way that I fought for passage of the DREAM Act, which we got done in Annapolis, so that the students here whose parents are undocumented can go to college at Montgomery College or the University of Maryland at in-state tuition prices. And I fought for that, and we got that done. We are a nation of immigrants, as you say, not exclusively immigrants, because we can't forget that there are millions of people in America who are the descendants of slaves, and who were brought over here involuntarily. That's an important part of the American story too. But we are also a nation of immigrants. My family were certainly immigrants to this country. My grandmother actually tried to make it to America when she was coming over from Poland originally. She didn't know how to read, and she was told just go to the country with the A in the front and the A on the back. So she ended up in Argentina and lived in Buenos Aires for 25 years before she got to America. She could have ended up in Albania or Austria or something like that. But so this is an important part of who we are. And I'm proud to be a Democrat because we stand up for the idea of what our last great Republican president called government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Today's Republicans, I think, have completely abandoned investment in the people of the country.
Before the next speaker speaks, I'm going to ask you guys to back away from the mic just a little bit because we're getting feedback. Don't be scared, but it's working. And then I'm going to ask the audience to please refrain from clapping because we want to give them maximum time to speak to you and to address your questions. Shall I repeat the question again, or you? Okay, very good. America is a country of immigrants, but our current immigration policies separate families, marginalize the undocumented, and take too long to file for family members. If elected, how important is immigration reform to you, and will you support a comprehensive immigration bill that does not eliminate the diversity visa lottery?
Thank you, Ngozi. I won't be sad that I don't get my clapping, but that's okay. Follow the rules. She knows what she's talking about. Of course, and as was mentioned, if we didn't have immigration, my dad wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here, so many of us in this room wouldn't be here. We are a nation of immigrants, whether involuntarily or voluntarily came here, unless you're a Native American. Even they crossed an ice bridge at some point. So it's the greatness of America, and the kind of the bad side of it that you see with the Republicans is this xenophobia and nativism that they're tapping into. It used to be that people didn't like the Irish or the Jewish or the Polish, and now it's the African, the Muslim, the Latino. And so that's also part of our history, so we have to acknowledge that and that we're dealing with those challenges. But I think the best part of America is that we can, and we're made stronger by our diversity. I worked in the Senate for about 6 years, and when I worked there, we almost passed immigration reform in 2007. I was proud to work on that bill. So we need a pathway to citizenship. We need to make sure that we do not pull families apart. I love President Obama. I worked for him for a long time. I think what he's doing with these raids is wrong. It separates families, and it's not good, and it's not who we are as Americans. So we need to move forward with a path to citizenship. And there are a lot of Republicans that want to do that. It's something we can get done, and we have to get done because it's the right thing to do. We have to do it economically, and we have to do it because we need the activity from these communities. And the last thing I'll say is the African immigrant community needs to have a larger voice in this debate, because often we're not a part of the conversation, and that needs to make sure that we put that on the forefront in Congress. And I would do that as a member of Congress. So thank you.
When Chris Van Hollen decided to run for the Senate was the first time that there's been an opportunity to run for Congress, and I had to jump in. And the reason why I had to jump in was for immigration. We absolutely need to fix our broken immigration system. I've been working as an immigrant with the immigrant community for many, many years. I was president of CASA, and you all fully understand the role that CASA, the important role that CASA has been able to play in this community. But I also have taught a course on immigration policy and the impact on state and local, because it impacts everything that we do, our education, our health, transportation, and our driver's license. I am the champion of having Maryland be one of the few states that kept the driver's license available for undocumented. But at the federal level, we absolutely need to move forward. I don't think comprehensive immigration reform is possible as the big enchilada, the way we tried to do it. I think we are going to have to move in very specific areas. First, we need to ensure that the executive actions of President Obama are made into law. We need to protect the dreamers. We need to protect the proposed DAPA initiatives that will make 5 million people who have children in the United States be able to have a permanent status. But we need to go beyond that. I can tell you the people who are on TPS for many years, like many Salvadorans, need to be able to be permanent residents. But more than anything, I believe the lottery was used to reduce the number of permanent residency visas. We need to go back to the times when I came and I got my visa, when work and a worker came together, and that got you a permanent visa. That's the number of visas that this country needs to keep its economy going, and to ensure that people who are willing to come and work are going to be here as permanent residents. Thank you.
Mr. Baudet.
Thank you. Of course, I support comprehensive immigration reform, and I very much support diversity in the mix of individuals who come to this country. As I said earlier, my grandfather, an Indian American Hindu man, came to this country and was discriminated against because of who he was. But you know, I will tell you that during the 1920s, when he was here, there were many Americans who were very kind to him and very helpful to him and my mother and our family. And I don't have the ability to repay the people who helped my family in the 1920s and 30s. That's why I became so aggressively involved in the DREAM Act, and along with Sheila Hickson, who represents this area as well, I was one of the persons who came up with some key legislative language that made the DREAM Act pass on the House side. And as you know, everybody pays taxes, and we simply made that as a requirement. But you know, of course, that's an easy thing to prove if you're working and living here, buying goods and services in Montgomery County and in Maryland. And so for me, this is a very emotional thing. Too many people were helpful to me and my family, and I consider it a moral obligation on my part to pay back to new Americans today, because I can't return the favor to the people who helped my grandparents and my mother way back when.
A similar question was asked in another forum, and my response was that I would support the Gang of Eight comprehensive reform that was in the U.S. Senate, with a modification that it leads to a green card and not citizenship unless there's extraordinary circumstances like working in the military. So that's on immigration reform. I'd also give a green card to any foreign graduate student who comes to the U.S. And this has been talked about, and it seems like everyone's in favor of it. I'm not sure why it hasn't been passed yet, but I would give a green card. But an issue that's come up very recent, well, not too recently, is the refugee crisis. And it's not just from Syria, it's also from Africa and other countries. We have more refugees in the world today, millions of them, than at any time since World War II. It's basically the major moral question. And I think that's an area that we need to address as far as immigration, that the U.S., I think, is committed to 10,000 Syrians out of 12 million displaced Syrians. I mean, it's absurd what we have done and what we have not done. So in Congress, I would work on immigration reform, but especially on the major moral issue of helping. I'm not saying we're going to take in millions, but surely we can take in many more than we have. And it's something that we should be doing. And as a moderate, as I said before, I hope to work with both the liberal Democrats, conservative Republicans on addressing that issue.
Yes, please.
Yes, I would certainly support immigration reform, because one of the great gifts of this country is that we have always found a way to incorporate and experience the blessings and the creativity and the intelligence that has been brought to our shores. We're all immigrants. The American Indians have been here a little longer, but even they came across the land bridge 450,000 years ago. It's just when we came that matters. The important thing is to provide a way for people who want to be here, because this is the greatest nation in the world, a path that's clear and understandable and appropriate for becoming a citizen, and to provide as many resources within that network, education, housing, employment, support, so that we're able to provide a place for someone who really wants to be here to have all the same gifts and abilities and resources that all the rest of us have. So I would absolutely support that we continue to find ways to make it possible for the immigration process to work well.
Very good. Candidate Kathleen Matthews just joined us, and I'd like to give her a moment to introduce herself, and I will also pose the same question to her before I go on to the second question. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Apologies for being late. I just come from the northern part of Montgomery County, where a group of Muslim American voters hosted a wonderful meet and greet to introduce me to some of the issues in their community. And with traffic, it took us a little longer to get here than we thought. But this is a wonderful opportunity for me to really address issues that I've not been able to talk about in the course of this campaign. Issues that are unique to the African community that has come here to our wonderful country to live and make lives for their families. For me, I have a great passion for Africa. My husband served in the Peace Corps in 1969 to 1971 in Swaziland. And I had my first chance to go to Africa when we had a 6-month-old baby in 1983. And since have been able to go over there more than a dozen times, both as a tourist, but also speaking on behalf of my country to women's conferences. In fact, a year ago, I was in South Africa when I heard that Chris Van Hollen was going to be running for the Senate seat and that there would be an open seat to be able to run for Congress. And I was mentoring a woman from KwaZulu-Natal, a South African woman, who was starting an AIDS program in her community that's been ravaged by that disease. And so it was there that I really made the decision that I wanted to get off the sidelines and actually be part of the process of making this country creating more opportunity in this country, addressing sort of our shrinking middle class, stagnant wages, and the income inequality that I think a lot of people are wrestling with. And so I really look forward to talking about immigration reform and all the issues that I think are really front of mind for all of you here today. Thank you.
Very good. I'd like to ask you the question that the rest of the candidates were just responding to before you came in, and then I will go to the next set of questions. And the question is this. America is a country of immigrants, but our current immigration policies separate families, marginalizing undocumented, and take too long to file for family members. If elected, how important is immigration reform to you, and will you support a comprehensive immigration bill that does not eliminate the diversity visa lottery?
For the past 9 years, I worked for Marriott International, a global company that is in 80 countries around the world, and had a chance to travel to more than 50 of them. And it's a company that employs people here in the United States that are immigrants from all over the world, and similarly in other countries, we do the same. And so I have been advocating in my previous role for immigration reform and comprehensive immigration reform, and working with the Obama administration on that. I right now believe that Hillary Clinton has sort of charted the right course. I think she goes even a step beyond President Obama on comprehensive immigration reform, in that she says that we should not be deporting anybody except terrorists and people with proven criminal records. And so I would be in favor of pushing for comprehensive legislation, but at the same time, making sure that people who are here now remain here, and that their families remain together, and that they are on a pathway towards legal status when we can get the Congress finally to move on that, and also a pathway to citizenship.
Very good, thank you. So the second question, and I'm going to start with candidate Jeffrey Jones, and we're going to work our way this way, just as we've done. And the question is this: many of our Black children in Montgomery County public school system are misdiagnosed as having an achievement gap, when the real problem is an opportunity gap. Would you support opportunity paths like community schooling, after-school enrichment programs, and paid internships for high school juniors and seniors?
Sounds like a very good question. If I say yes, does that solve the problem?
No, it does not.
I think education really has the greatest resource for providing the best opportunities down the road. And so whatever we can do in the education system, where the children reach the system, reach other opportunities become available, teachers begin to recognize the talents and gifts. And so schools is a very good place to provide all kinds of resources. The idea of internship is an exciting one. I think many people discover what their real gifts and talents and abilities are, and have an opportunity to get a step up into a field where they can experience their career, and their opportunity to explore their talents and gifts are found through an internship program. One of the ways that might help is to turn that internship program into a mentoring and tutoring program for younger children, because they've already made some progress, already become aware of what is expected and what is coming, and might be a terrific way to kind of balance and to nurture and encourage the growth and development, so that the opportunity to follow through with dreams and plans and the skills necessary to go where their heart and mind takes them is very important.
Very good.
The high school internship is very interesting. When I read your advanced publication, I have proposed that we convert the Pell Grant program to a Shell Grant program. The federal government Pell Grant program is a $30 billion a year program, where students in college get up to $6,000 a year towards their tuition for low-income families, but they don't have to do anything for it. Under my Shell Grant program, they would get up to $10,000 a year, but they have to do something for it. They have to be either a volunteer first responder, firefighter, police, EMS, or a volunteer tutor or aide in the public schools. And that would be a tremendous help for helping the students in our public schools, because the class sizes are getting bigger because of budget constraints. Here's a way we can do $30 billion a year in services to state and local government at no increased cost to the federal government. We're already spending the $30 billion. And I would then divert $30 billion in cash to the states and local governments as a further savings, since they're getting the services and rather than the cash. But it just takes your idea as far as the high school internship to a college internship instead under the grants, where there again we get up to $10,000 a year if they're a volunteer tutor or aide in the public schools.
Candidate Balde, would you like me to repeat the question?
Nope, I think I got it. First of all, obviously education is a key to advancement for all people in all communities. And, you know, we in the Maryland General Assembly have gone a long way in achieving a lot of these successes in our state. And let me tell you specifically what I've been involved with. I didn't have a chance to tell you, I'm an accountant. I'm the chief financial officer of a company, of an environmental company in Rockville, Maryland, and I was the lead legislator in closing $200 million in corporate tax loopholes. We took that money, I was the lead legislator in making the tax code more progressive, making making sure that more wealthy people paid their fair share in taxes, and we put the majority of that money into our education programs, and we also froze tuition at the University of Maryland for 4 years. Now, as an accountant, as a liberal Democrat, and as a believer in the transformative power of education, those are the kind of values I'm going to take to the U.S. Congress. I think the internship program is exciting and very, very good. But at the end of the day, folks, we have to find the money to pay for all of these things. And I assure you, as an accountant, as a person who's used that in my position as majority leader and now as chairman of the standing committee in Annapolis, that's exactly what I'm going to continue to do for you as a member of Congress.
I don't know if I mentioned in my opening remarks that I served on the school board for 8 years right here in Montgomery County from 1990 to 98. And the reason why I did was because I had been out of the country with my family, came back in the early 80s and saw that we had a totally different demographics in our county schools. We had the huge migration in from Central America, escaping the bombs that President Reagan was deciding to do every day. And so you saw the beginning of this huge migration, particularly from El Salvador, from Guatemala, Honduras. And what I saw was that wonderful Montgomery County Public Schools that gave me the opportunity to go on and become a professional, all of a sudden we had a two-class system. It had some selected students that were doing great. Asians and whites and Black and Latinos were at the bottom of the gap. That needed to get changed. So 25 years ago, I got off the sidelines, ran for office, and have worked to change the education policy and provide the education opportunities for students. I wish I could say we've achieved it. We haven't. There is so much more to do. But let me mention, specific to these questions, Montgomery County Public Schools had these programs. It had the paid internships. We matched up students, especially in the technical programs, to be able to go and code and get paid for 20 hours of the week at private institutions. We had very effective after-school programs. But what's happened, as the population has grown, we have 156,000 students. Our funding has stayed still. And what we now have are huge class sizes, and that is the way to get to lower quality education. We must all work, and I know that you all are working to ensure that we're working from the bottom up, but we need to work also from the top down and ensure that federal funding is coming and targeting particularly the kids in need, particularly the Title I, Title IIs that go to poor kids. And that's what I will do. Thank you.
This is not only one of the defining issues of our time, educational opportunity, it's also the reason I'm sitting up here. It's the reason that I've been able to do everything I've been able to do, and it's the reason I got into public policy. I talk about on the campaign trail because this was a critical moment for me. When I was 12 years old, I lost one of my best friends to gun violence. It was the same year that I got a scholarship to St. John's College High School, private high school in DC. And the dichotomy of those two outcomes, that I was going to get ready to go to this private high school and that he was in a box, led me to investigate, well, why did that happen? And I realized quickly that I wasn't better than him and he wasn't worse than me, but that it was our access to opportunity, a large part which was educational. I realized his mom worked 2 to 3 jobs that didn't pay a living wage, so she wasn't home from 3 to 7, which we know are critical hours for research where you have to be home to make sure your kids have positive people around them so they don't get caught up in trouble. I realized that the transportation infrastructure was too slow, and it took her 2.5 hours to get to and from Bethesda. So I realized it was systemic factors, and that's how I got into this work. And I've dedicated a large part of my career to working on educational opportunity, both locally and nationally. Nationally, I worked on the Senate Education Committee where we expanded Head Start, which is early childhood education, to the highest number of slots ever. We reduced the student loan interest rate on the back for kids going to college and expanded Pell Grants, which were mentioned earlier. But I also worked here locally. We have a growing opportunity gap in this county, 156,000 students, as was mentioned. We are de facto segregated in our school system in this county. and growing so fast that if we don't recognize this problem and expand after school and target resources and teachers in a way to address this, it's an emergency. And the fact that our pants aren't on fire is crazy. And so you can promise you that I'm going to work on this issue harder than anyone because I've done it, and it's really core to why I'm running.
I'm going to ask the candidates to please stick to the minute and a half that you have so we can get through the questions this afternoon. Thank you. Mr. Raskin.
Thank you. So you asked about after-school clubs, enrichment programs, internships. And not only would I be a huge booster and supporter and funder of such activities, I have made them a central part of everything that I've done, both as a professor of constitutional law at American University and as a state senator. The first program that I ever launched along these lines is called the Marshall Brennan Constitutional Literacy Project, which I did with the families of Thurgood Marshall and William Brennan. And we go in and we teach about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution to kids in public high schools. And we're at 18 high schools throughout the Maryland and DC area, and it's spread to 20 law schools across the country. So literally thousands of high school students have gotten an education into basic constitutional literacy skills through this. Secondly, I don't know, do I have any other fellow big fans of chess out there? Any chess players? We got some, okay. So we launched a program after the terrible, tragic killing of a young man named Ty Lamb, who was a student at Blair High School, who was a friend of my son Tommy's, who was a chess player, and he was killed by gang members on a bus in downtown Silver Spring. And we launched a program called All the Right Moves to try to bring chess into public schools. I've worked very closely with Fernando Moreno at Broadacres Elementary School and other chess activists in the community to get this out there. My son Tommy, who graduated from Blair High School, was involved in starting a program called BLISS. Any of you guys know about the BLISS program at Blair, but it's a student-to-student tutoring program, and I'm very proud of what he did. I actually saw Renee Johnson, our principal, yesterday. He told me that BLISS is still going strong, so this is an important value in our family.
I think we all know that income inequality starts with education inequality. So we've got to start with basic resources like a level playing field through universal pre-kindergarten at all of our schools across this country and investing in our public schools, and especially in English as a second language. But we also have to look at enrichment programs, and we have to think out of the box, I think. So I very much benefited in my high school days tutoring in a low-income community, teaching disabled children how to swim, a lot of activities like that that really were the enrichment in my life beyond school. And looking for programs like that that we can provide to all youth. During my 9 years working for Marriott International, where I was a senior executive reporting to the CEO, we created a nationwide program through the National Academy Foundation. We paired courtyard hotels, small hotels, with every high school in those communities for a mentoring program for after-school enrichment so that they could look at new careers that they might engage in and find internships in those schools. And we made a commitment to thousands, in fact hundreds of thousands of hours through the Clinton Global Initiative for that program. Overseas, I started programs with a group called Aquila in Rwanda, where we found young girls right out of high school and we brought them into a training program, not in Rwanda, but in Dubai, where we gave them mentors and paid them to learn hotel skills. They're now returning to Rwanda to work in the hotel that Marriott International is opening up in Rwanda. And we found a similar program that I launched a year ago in South Africa called Harambee. The Harambee program is a job accelerator that takes young disadvantaged youth and pairs them with jobs, with the training that is a bridge. And we've got to look for these out-of-the-box ideas, not only in our own community, but all over the world, which is going to really advance the next generation in the 21st century.
Kenge, where are you? All right, Kenge is walking around and she's collecting questions from the audience because we're going to get to that point very shortly. If you have a question, please make sure she has it, okay? All right, so the last question I have for the candidates, and I am going to start with you, Ms. Andrews, and we're going to work in that direction. Is that okay? Small businesses are the engines of America's economy, but the focus, the incentive, and power is usually given to big businesses. What is your vision for Montgomery County's vibrant small businesses? And would you support President Obama's Trade, Not Aid initiative for Africa?
I think entrepreneurship is going to be the future, not only of our U.S. economy, but also the world. And so we have to encourage that entrepreneurship. And I remember talking to Seth Goldman, who started Honest Tea. His business is based in Bethesda, Maryland. And he said, we've got to look for the ways to support and create incentives but also ways to ease the pathway for these small businesses, because that's what the young generation, millennials, want to go into. They're all looking for these new startups. And so we've got to help them through tax incentives, ways that they can provide a minimum wage without having to lose jobs, provide family and paid medical leave, and the kind of benefits that we believe that all businesses should provide. When you talk about Africa, it's got to be a combination of aid and trade, I believe. Traditionally, we've looked at aid programs through USAID, but President Obama has really sort of put forth the trade as another way that we really incentivize and grow small businesses in Africa, which is now eclipsing 1 billion people and has vibrant economies all over the continent. And so looking for ways that we combine the two. And we've had some great success, I think, with some of the trade initiatives to this country, where Africa is increasing its exports to the U.S. because of the incentives that have been put into place, but also creating lots of new jobs in Africa as a result of those trade incentives that we put into place. Thank you.
Yes. Well, the big businesses, the big corporations, they have political action committees and lobbyists and an army of representatives to go fight for them on Capitol Hill. So I don't need to be their representative. I want to be the representative of the small businesses in our community, and that's precisely what I've done from Annapolis. And I'll give you 2 examples of legislation that I've done. One is really path-clearing legislation called the Benefit Corporation Law. We became the first state in the United States, the first state on earth to create a new corporate form where you charter the business to make money, but also to have a public purpose as well. And it might be promoting adult literacy, it might be cleaning up a stream, it could be anything, but you build it into the charter of the company. The very second benefit corporation on earth is represented here today by Sarah and Tababu Asefa, and I've been very involved in helping them from the very beginning try to promote Blessed Coffee, which my wife drinks every morning. I'm not a coffee person, but the coffee people love Blessed Coffee, which comes from their native Ethiopia. The second is we made it possible for people to raise money online from fellow Marylanders up to $100,000 in $100 increments. So you can go online in a crowd-raising platform without having to file with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. So much of the federal red tape and bureaucracy is based on the idea that it's a huge corporation that has an army of consultants and lawyers to do this stuff, and we're finding ways to allow small businesses to get up and go without having to go through all the red tape.
Thank you.
Great question, thank you. One of the things that we have to remember is that, 90% of our businesses in Maryland are small businesses. And that African immigrants in particular, along with a lot of immigrants, come over here with the highest level of education, often are multiple degrees, and the ability to have already been business owners. I see Sophie Sisse, who owns a great business, since we're giving business shout outs, a food business, which is wonderful, buy fruits and vegetables and things from there. And one of the things that I think we have to do also is recognize that you have people that come here and know how to do business, but how do we remove the barriers for folks that are trying to do business? So these are barriers like access to capital, making sure that people can get loans and actually invest in their business. It's things like, how do you deal with government and local government? Procurement is a huge issue in this county. There's all these goals and targets, but we know from the numbers that African immigrants, blacks, Latinos are not getting their share of procurement from this county. And that's a problem at the federal and the national level as well. Then on the small business side, we have to invest in the future leaders of tomorrow. I was so proud to help put together and be a part of the first YALI class, the Young African Leaders Initiative, that the president brought over hundreds of young African leaders from different countries to help them talk about their business ideas and their plans to improve their countries and take that information back. Because we know the power of that exchange is very powerful. So I would be looking for ways to leverage leaders here and back in the continent so that we can strengthen our businesses both here and there.
Well, between small business and big business, there's no doubt. I will go with small business every time. That is the essence of the creation of jobs. That's the essence of entrepreneurship and the hope and growth of our economy. I work with a wonderful woman, Sagrario Ortiz, who has a very small nonprofit that is called the Poder de Ser Mujer. And in 6 weeks, she will take young women, old women, or women who desire to go into business, and in 6 weeks helps them prepare a business plan, do the hard economic goals, and at the end of the 6 weeks, they are ready and they have started a business. It can be a small business, it can be an ambitious business, but that is capturing that energy of our immigrants and our young entrepreneurs. But that's not going to help us at the federal level. The federal government must do the type of things that Bernie is talking about. We need to move away from the 1% controlling everything at the expense of the 99%. We need to make this a high priority. We need to put in the regulatory controls. We need to put in the laws that are going to ensure that the rich are not getting richer, and that this money is being brought down and shared so that we can all grow. In small business, medium-sized business, entrepreneurship is the answer for growing the economy.
Thank you. Mr. Bobby?
Well, I think I'm the only person here who is actually a manager of small business, and my perspective is a little different. We have 25 employees, and my observation is that the economy is an ecosystem. Big businesses, medium-sized businesses, and small businesses are in a symbiotic relationship with one another. Now, in my company, we have 500 customers. We pick up hazardous waste, some from doctors and dentists, but we also have very large customers. 4 of our customers account for 1/4 of our revenues, and many small businesses are exactly like that. I don't believe in pitting one against the other. I believe that what is healthy for the entire economy, and especially for small businesses, is understanding the importance of simplifying tax regulations, having a progressive income tax system, and also working with all businesses so we can all thrive. You know, here in Silver Spring, you have 2 very important large businesses. You have United Therapeutics and you have Discovery. And these 2 large companies employ dozens of medium-sized and small businesses. Take it from me, it's important to small business people for their success and survival, for everyone to succeed. It's not a false dichotomy here, and I'm not going to choose between one or the other, but at the end of the day, for small businesses, it is, of course, having an educated workforce, having simple, understandable regulations, and an appreciation of the fact of how hard they work, because let me tell you, that's how hard I work.
To help small businesses, I propose tax reform. Currently, all businesses pay 35%, no matter what your size. I've proposed a graduated, almost what Kumar was talking about, 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25% tax rates, so that the small business would start off at 5%, which is a reasonable tax for a small business, and then work its way up. Regarding trade, as you know, that's very controversial. The TPP on Pacific, the 12 nations, I'm not sure if that's ever going to get approved. I don't like the multi-nation trade agreements. I'm favoring bilateral 5-year trade agreements with 5-year renewal options. So that way, we have a specific trade agreement between the United States and a specific country, not 10 or 11 countries. So we match the needs of our 2 countries, and we limit it to 5 years. After which we say, do we want to continue or not? Do we want to modify it or not? Which would encourage the nations to work together, because oftentimes you don't know what's going to happen in your trade agreement. So we could have these trade agreements with all the countries of the world, but again, bilateral, not multilateral. And it's very difficult. If you watch the presidential debates, the candidates, both parties, trade has become very controversial both for Democrats and Republicans. And I think a reasonable bilateral 5-year trade agreement is the way to work out a solution to the trade that can get through Congress and signed by the president.
As a pastor, I had on 2 occasions the opportunity to start a ministry to the unemployed because of a variety of reasons, shutdowns in the company. And several of those who were there were coached by others to consider small business. So I'm very supportive of the idea that that's a great place to start. But I also understand, as already been mentioned, there's a connection between small businesses and medium businesses and large businesses, and the opportunity to go from a small business to a large business is certainly possible and want to be encouraged. One of the things I've discovered in preparation for our meeting today, and thankful for the questions being provided for us, is that aid and trade question is a big one. And there are no easy answers. And part of the challenges, and one of the things I discovered as my living in Africa gave us, was that the challenge of how the government is operating. And so when there is a clear opportunity for the trade to be set up with a government that's working and in a democratic form, the folks in the country are able to begin to take real advantage of that. And so we want to find ways to encourage that kind of connection and support the opportunity that would really value the creativity and the energy and the work that people put in. So trade, yes. Small businesses, yes. Let's nurture and encourage our creativity everywhere we can find it.
Very good. Thank you very much. We're going to give the audience a chance to interact with you, ask you questions. We have about approximately 20 minutes to get through this process. Recall that you have about 30 seconds to respond to their questions. Okay. Kenge, please.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for submitting your questions. I've received a lot of really great questions because education was the top count. When I was counting them, education was the top topic. So it says our education system continues to slip down the ranks globally. With large increases in the number of foreign children entering our public school systems, what would you do to ensure that we are culturally competent and sensitive, or have culturally competent and sensitive teachers and educators, as well as administrators, to help bridge that achievement gap suffered by foreigners and avoid the trap of young people of color ending up in the juvenile justice system?
Why don't we start with you, Ms. Mann?
Great. So one of the great miracles in this country is the continuous waves of immigration. And it is what has created the mix, the melting pot, the stew that is America. And we want to encourage that. But we also want to make sure that we don't have growing income, education inequality, and achievement gaps. And so resourcing teachers to be able to be in the classroom in the ratios that you need when you have children who speak English as their second language is very important, and something that we really have to pay attention to. We also have to, I think, look for things, as I said before, that are kind of out-of-the-box solutions. Public schools in Denver, Colorado, for example, now have, in some cases, extended the school day so that children stay in school from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock or even 5 o'clock. And that enables children to do their homework at school with some teachers supervising. That's so helpful when you have two working parents or a single working parent who's not able to be at home and help with the homework. So looking for those kinds of solutions that help families when you have families working very hard to support their children. I think we have to look for those kinds of things. But I also think about the miracles, and I want Eli, who works on my campaign team, to stand up. He wasn't expecting this, but Eli came here as an immigrant with his parents from Ethiopia. He went to Memphis Public Schools. He graduated in the top of his class, and he got a full scholarship to Vanderbilt. Now he's working on my campaign. I am so proud of this young man, and every day he's thinking about his mother. His father passed away from diabetes. His mother at home, who works in a bakery, trying to make sure that she is also taken care of as he is trying to launch his own career. These are the children, these are the young adults we have to be working towards helping.
Very good. Anybody else want to answer that question?
Just 30 seconds.
Yes.
So, the federal government has been the principal instrument of equalization in our history with programs like Title I and the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. And we have to make sure the federal government continues to be a champion for equalization. At the same time, the testing in schools has gotten completely out of control. And it is extinguishing and driving out a lot of creative teachers and the opportunity for people to learn together. So I want to try to reverse the testing dogma that there's been, but I also believe in the African dictum of it takes a village, and we need to have all of these other programs and people in society being engaged and involved with the kids to lift everybody up together.
Huge issue. Montgomery County is a microcosm of a national trend, growing 2,500 students a year, mostly low income, mostly students of color. As I mentioned earlier, segregated in many ways in East West County. And we have serious challenges that we have to face, not just overcrowding. You have in the same district, Walt Whitman, which is overcrowded, and Springbrook, which is under-enrolled, right? And because of our segregation and because of the way the school system works out. So we have some serious issues. We need our best teachers teaching our students that have the most challenges, and we need to incentivize that. We need longer school day. We need longer school year, in my opinion. We need to fund after-school programming and cultural competency training in our teachers, including implicit bias training, which we know African American students have a higher rate of being suspended and expelled, and that's true here in Montgomery County as well. So we have a lot of issues we have to target, and we're going to have to be bold because it's going to take opening up teacher contracts and looking at the way we allocate resources across the county. And you need someone who understands those issues, but also is going to be bold and make sure they have a vision for how we move forward together.
Yes, in 1990, when I entered the school board, we had just received a very important report, the Gordon Report, that looked at why Montgomery County had winners and losers. The bottom line in the recommendations were that it was teacher expectations. There were different expectations depending on the color of your skin. And it is that has driven me to look at what are the necessary education reforms. Number one, we absolutely have to increase teacher competency. We must hire differently. We must hire for diversity because we need to catch up. The universities are not preparing the teachers to meet what the students that are in the classroom. There is no appreciation of the linguistic assets that are brought by the children into our classroom. We say ESOL, first English, then you can learn. Absolutely not. We need dual language instruction from the very, very early grades. I have a bill that hopefully will pass this year, which gives a seal of biliteracy to all those high school students that graduate speaking more than one language, English and any other language. What an asset our language are, and what a future these students will have if we recognize and award those competencies.
Well, I agree with everything that's been said up until now, so let me go a little beyond the question and say that in the United States of America, we have 4 million jobs that are going unfilled because we don't have people who are trained for those jobs. We need to do what I did at the state level, close corporate tax loopholes so that we can free up money, partner with the business community to get training to those 4 million Americans to fill those jobs. These are middle-skill jobs, respiratory technicians, plumbers, welders. These are the kinds of jobs that are not outsourceable. We should focus more on upgrading the skills of the middle class than we do typically fighting wars in the Middle East.
K through 12 education is basically state and local government. We're running for Congress, the federal government. As I indicated before, if we take the Pell Grants and transfer them into Shell Grants, that's $30 billion worth of services each year to go to volunteer first responders, aides, or tutors in the public schools. That's how the federal government, at no increase in the budget, can provide dramatic help to state and local governments in the school system. And we have to be realistic. We're talking about Congress. Trying to get money from Congress is going to be difficult.
One of the things that we can do in 30 seconds or less is to remember that we often expect the federal government or Congress to fix the problems. One of the best resources we have is folks interested in going into your local school and tutoring, encouraging, creating. In our United Methodist Church, we are all trying to adopt a school in our neighborhood so that we can provide those extra resources to make that difference. And that's a simple idea that can be picked up by community groups, athletic clubs, families. Adopt a school in your neighborhood and encourage that kind of diversity.
Thank you, thank you. Now, this next question is related to gun violence. Many of us here that have immigrated to these states for safety and for opportunity. What is your position on the sale and carrying laws of guns?
Anybody want to begin? Mr. Raskin.
This issue has been very central to my work in Annapolis. After the disaster took place in Newtown, Connecticut, I introduced with Senator Brian Frosch the toughest, most comprehensive gun safety law in America, and we got it passed. We have mandatory fingerprint licensing for anybody who's going to purchase a handgun. We have a ban on military-style assault weapons. We've limited the size of the magazines. We've said that if a gun is lost or stolen, you have only 48 hours to report it to the authorities, and if you don't, that's a misdemeanor. What I want to do is to take the Maryland way on gun safety to Washington, to take on the NRA in Congress the way that I took on the NRA in Annapolis, and to get permanent, comprehensive gun safety law passed in Washington. That's totally what I want to do.
Let me say that you don't have to respond to the question, not all of you, But if you have a response, please provide it so you're not feeling the pressure to respond. Okay?
Let me just say that I think, at least among the Democrats, there is no difference of opinion among us in this issue. And Democratic Party of the United States has always been the political party, that has supported gun control and limiting gun violence through the use of federal regulation. And I would submit to you that the reason we have these problems is, to a very great extent, because the U.S. Supreme Court is unbalanced. It is a unduly conservative Supreme Court, and it's my hope the next Democratic president and Democratic Senate will replace Antonin Scalia with, I don't know, maybe Barack Obama. Who knows?
I'll just add quickly, Kumar's right in the sense that we all are for gun safety and gun violence. I told you my personal story, losing a friend when I was young to gun violence. One thing that's not often mentioned that I do want to mention, and then I want to talk about how you get it done, is gun trafficking. My wife, who's here, Michelle Jawando, authored a bill for Senator Kirsten Gillibrand that would crack down on trafficking of guns across state lines. A lot of times, even if you have a great law here in Maryland, people go and buy them other places and then they come and sell them, and the penalties for that are not as dramatic as you would think they are. That's one thing. The second thing is we're going to have to build. Washington's not Annapolis. It's a very different environment. I've worked up there for a long time. And we're going to have to be able to have someone who can speak with power and passion about the impact of guns in our lives, and then build the coalitions on the outside to get something done about it. And that's going to take some time. It's going to be incremental, but that's a key factor in this gun debate.
Ms. Matthews?
I would agree with Will. This is not about the bill. There have been a lot of bills that have been going nowhere in the U.S. Congress. It's about mounting a communications and political strategy to convince moderate Democrats who may still oppose gun safety legislation and moderate Republicans who also oppose it, and getting them to turn the corner on this issue. And so I would say that, people who have the communication skills, I would bring everything I've learned in 30 years as a television news journalist and every shooting that I ever covered, including the sniper crisis, as part of the communication strategy to try to win over enough people so we can finally get this done and face down the NRA.
I just want to reiterate President Obama's approach that says stop electing people that are going to not support the control of gun sales, gun violence. Most of the regulations for gun sales and regulations are at the state level. That's why I'm so proud that in Maryland we passed this terrific set of laws. But we're not done yet. It isn't one law that's going to make it the whole change. We have to continuously look to see how we train, how we regulate, how we strengthen those systems that are going to keep our communities safe.
Anybody else with a response? Yes, Mrs. Bowman.
In my work, I visit the Social Security office in Seabrook, Maryland. It's a regular little office for Social Security Administration. And there's the lobby area where people wait. Usually there's 50 or more people. They have 2 armed guards in the lobby at that Social Security office. 2 armed guards. If the federal government can devote the resources to put 2 armed guards at a local Social Security office, surely we could put armed security guards in all our public schools. We'd pay for it again. I told you about the Shell grants, the volunteer first responders. They could be military veterans going to college who would also be a volunteer security guard at a school.
As one of the Republicans, I wanted to say, I was the pastor who buried the victim of the Beltway sniper, the first one. And so I know very much what that does to the families. But I agree with Kathleen on this one. We need to elect, and why I'm running, people who know how to negotiate, who know how to compromise, who know how to get things done so that something can be accomplished that's for the good of all of us.
Thank you. Okay, now this is related to the general election, or to the election overall. As you are running for a position in the legislative branch of the government, will you support your party's nominee, even if it is not you? And will you support your presidential nominee, given everything that's happening in the elections at this time?
Of course I will. We've got to elect more Democrats. We're lucky that this is a Democratic district 2-1, and so I believe that the Democrat will represent this district and succeed Chris Van Hollen. And we are a Democratic state, and I'm very confident that we'll have a Democrat a Democratic senator, and I've endorsed Chris Van Hollen for that role. I believe he's got the most broad-based skills to be able to do the job, and he's been my local congressman and done a wonderful job. And I very early on endorsed Hillary Clinton because I think Hillary Clinton not only will be the most successful against any Republican, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, we got to make sure that none of them are elected, but she also has the broadest experience and the global experience that we need to tackle the problems in the world today.
Mr. Raskin.
The answer is absolutely yes. I will view it as an important duty of the nominee from this district, or even if I'm not nominated, to do everything in my power to elect either Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders president, whichever one is nominated, and to elect a Democratic majority in the House and the Senate. When I first got nominated to the state Senate here in District 20, I had no general election opposition, and I took our army of several hundred volunteers to other people's districts to get Democrats elected across the state. So I work with Republicans, I compromise with Republicans, I don't give money to Republicans, I don't support Republicans in general election contests against Democrats, but we need a Democratic majority in Washington in 2017.
Is that for everybody? Or?
Yes, anybody
Sure.
that's...
The answer is yes, absolutely. Will support the Democratic nominee and the Democratic nominee. Hopefully I'm supporting myself in this race. But I'm going to continue to push the Democratic Party. One of the things I've talked about a lot of this in this race is the Democratic principle of inclusivity and diversity. We're in a county that's 52% people of color. We have 3 Congress people that represent us, Chris Van Hollen, John Sarbanes, and John Delaney, all great people. But it's 3 white men for a mostly majority of color community. And I think when you have an open seat like this is, you need to consider that as a democratic principle and a core value, not because diversity for diversity's sake, but because it improves the policy outcomes. And I know because I've been in Washington and I know that.
I think it was a yes and no question, but everybody's gone on, so I will do so. I absolutely will support the Democratic presidential, senatorial, and congressional candidate that is selected. But I think, like Will is saying, we need to look at our county, particularly Montgomery County, and see that it is now a minority majority. That means that our diversity really is the strength of our county. We need to be represented by people that are different from those that have represented the county before. You have an excellent choices in candidates here. I hope that you will look beyond the money and the rhetoric and what the media is saying are the front runners, and make sure that you elect a person that's going to be representing you and your interests.
Well, let's make sure we hear from the Republicans on the panel. So please, would you go ahead and support your...
Well, let me answer the question since all the other Democrats answered as well. Number one, yes, I will support every Democratic nominee for president, for the Senate, and for the U.S. Congress. And let me also say that as the first person of color to serve as the Democratic majority leader in the Maryland General Assembly, it was my job to help recruit and elect Democrats throughout the state of Maryland. And finally, while it's true that we're a majority-minority county, our voting patterns are not that. So everybody in this room has to go and vote, period. No exceptions.
Well, to differ from them, I will not support the Democrat nominees. I will not support them. But I will support the Republicans. But basically, seriously, I consider both parties as big tent parties. And unfortunately, as you see here, the Democrat Party has gone to the left, the Republican Party has gone to the right. And there's a lot of intolerance, I think, in both parties that they are moving away from the big tent. And as a candidate, I will promote my candidates. Obviously, I will differ, as you know, on my issues. As a moderate Republican, I differ on a number of issues with other Republicans. But I think both parties, to survive and thrive and benefit all of us, we need to have both as big tent parties and not what's happening here as indicated on this side and sometimes on our side.
As a Republican in this race, I will say that our process requires a great deal of prayer. We need to be praying. One of the other things we need to remember is that, yes, we're sitting in Montgomery County at the moment, and I'm a Montgomery County High School graduate, but our district goes all the way to the Pennsylvania line. So I, too, would remind you, you must vote. You really need to vote. You need to find somebody that you believe understands where you're coming from, what your life has been like, and respond appropriately. Because we have a great country that allows us to choose.
Very good. We have time for just one more question, and in the pattern which we're responding.
Earlier we spoke about immigration and the lottery system not being knocked away when you are looking for comprehensive immigration reform, whether you're for it or against it. What is your understanding of the diversity lottery program as it relates to the African immigrant community?
I'm happy to chime in first and give everyone a chance to think about it. So I know from having worked on this issue several people in this room are co-founders of the African Immigrant Caucus, which is, if you're not a member, I'll do a little quick plug of that. It's to raise up African immigrant voice in this community in the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia, where there are no more Africans than any other place in the country, so that your voices are heard and so that you vote. And one of the issues, I'm also a member of the African Affairs Advisory Group for Montgomery County, several members are here, that the issue of Africans being, discrimination may be a strong word, but not preferenced in this process of who comes into the country through the lottery visa has been a continual issue. It's been something that's been advocated on the Hill, and there are some good members like Karen Bass and others who have been open to hearing that. I think we need to make sure that we look to Africa as an opportunity. This is back to the trade versus aid. I think too often our foreign policy in this country has viewed Africa and other parts of the world as missionary, folks that need to be helped, where it's as opposed to a resource and people and leaders who can actually inform and grow the economy. And if you look at it that way, you're going to want to bring people over and not disadvantage people in that lottery.
If I could just jump in, when the lottery was established, there was politics being played, and it was a moving away from the family reunification policy that had been the principal way in which visas were granted. What they did was to look at what are the populations that were not present in the United States, and that's why there were so many African nations that weren't present here, part of that lottery. But the lottery does not include everybody. In Latin America, nobody can apply for the lottery. So it tries to make winners and losers by reducing the number of visas, and that was the mistake. It was actually a mistaken tool that was used to reduce the overall immigration into the United States. We need to go back to much larger numbers of permanent residency visas that allow people to come who are able and willing to work. The HB1, HB2 visas are not the answer. They replaced a lot of these permanent visas that force people to stay here 3 years and then go back to their country. And all of a sudden you get some more people who have to be retrained and they go back to their country. That's flawed policy. That is, I believe, an anti-immigration policy that currently exists and it needs to be changed.
I completely agree with Anna here. Those policies are almost tantamount to indentured servitude of old. Let me just say that for me, the end result has to be immigration policies that are colorblind and religion blind. When my grandfather came to this country, there were very strict limits on how many people could come here from Asia. It was an Asian Exclusion Act, I think is what it was called, and that was, it was kind of a racist. It was a racist policy. It was a racist policy of only allowing people from Europe to come to this country. That's wrong, and it's counterproductive for America's national interest.
During my 9 years at Marriott, I worked a lot on visa policy because being in the travel industry, you want to make it easy for people to move around the world. And one of the things I learned was visas go back to Roman times. Roman times where you had to have a piece of paper to allow yourself to move around from where you lived to other parts of the country. And so comprehensive immigration reform is focused mostly on the 11 to 12 million people who are here, most of whom overstayed their legal visas to remain in this country to work. But we have to look at this as a comprehensive immigration reform policy. And so there are lots of visa pieces, whether it's immigrant visas, non-immigrant visas, visa waiver to allow people to travel for education or for travel or business. All of those things have to be part of this mix that we look at going forward.
Any other response? One moment, let me give Mr. Skonek.
Okay, as indicated before, I think the main issue today is the worldwide refugee crisis. And I would say for the short term, on immigration of new people coming to new immigrants, that we ought to focus on the refugees throughout the world. It's really, it's enormous, and the United States should do much more.
Very good. Mr. Raskin.
Like my fellow candidates, I would definitely favor working hard to pass comprehensive immigration reform, and one that advances a much greater equity within the positions that are available. We need to organize people politically to make that happen. I think the Congressional Progressive Caucus, which has now, I think it's more than 72 or 73 members, will be a very important force in that. I've been endorsed in this campaign by the Congressional Progressive Caucus, as well as the African American Democratic Club of Montgomery County, Attorney General Frost, and lots of others. We need to build a big coalition to make that happen.
Any other response? Very good. Let me say to the audience that if we didn't get to your questions, you'll have another opportunity. We'll mingle here. You get a chance to chat with the candidates after the forum. So don't worry, you'll get a chance to ask your questions. Kenya, thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to transition to closing remarks. Please remember that you have a minute and a half to respond so we can get you out of here on time. Let me go ahead and start with Mr. Raskin. And I'm going to mix it up a bit so that you get an opportunity to think about what you want to say.
Good, except me. So, look, I think I have been able to communicate my record of effective progressive advocacy and leadership over the decades as a professor of constitutional law, as a community activist right here in Silver Spring and Tacoma Park, and as the state senator for the last 10 years, where I've also been able to chair several legislative committees and to be the majority whip for the Democrats. Look, public office is something that we earn. It's not something that we buy in the United States of America. So this congressional district has suddenly become a kind of national laboratory for how people get elected to office. And I just want to say there is a logic to the American system of federalism where people get involved at the local level. Here in Tacoma Park and Silver Spring, I can't tell you the number of committees that I served on here, the redistricting committee, Democratic precinct official, precinct vice official, and so on and so forth. And then I ran for the state senate, and I served in the state senate for 10 years. I've had 150,000 constituents. I give everybody my cell phone number. I meet with everybody. I fight for everybody's interest. And now I think I'm ready to run for Congress, having learned the parliamentary skills and having exposed the public to what my talents are, what my strengths are, and what my weaknesses are. I don't propose just to go right to the U.S. Congress without serving you first. So I would say I humbly submit my petition to you. I think and I hope that I have earned your vote in running for Congress from the 8th Congressional District. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Jawanda.
Thank you, Ngozi. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I'm always excited to see diverse crowds caring about democracy. I think this election is an important election, not just nationally. You get 3 votes for federal office, President, U.S. Senate, and Congress. And those are important elections as well as the local elections. And right now, we send the same types of people with the same backgrounds, with the same wealth and connections to Congress. It's the reason that Congress has a 14% approval rating. It's the reason that 53% of the people in Congress are millionaires for the first time in our country's history. We have 3 millionaires running in this race. And we have outside of that, we have the people with the same types of life experience for the most part. What my suggestion to you is let's send someone to Congress who understands what working people are going through because they've lived it and are living it. When I talk about child care, it's because I have 3 kids under 5 and we struggle every month to pay child care. When we talk about student loan debt, it's because my wife and I have $160,000, sorry honey, in student loan debt. When we talk about elder care, it's because we take care of my dad who came down with cancer and lost his job, and thank God for Obamacare, we signed him up, and now he's living with us. Those are the things that most people are dealing with. And I'll tell you what's not represented in Congress are the people who understand those issues. The wealthy, the well-connected, the career politicians, the people who have done the normal route are represented. It's time for something new because we're at a new moment in history. This is not the seat that Chris Van Hollen ran for 14 years ago. It's a different seat and it's a different time. And I would ask that you consider me for your vote. Thank you very much.
Mr. Skonek.
I mentioned this in an earlier forum today. I was watching television last night about what was happening in Chicago at the rally. It reminded me of the 1960s when there was a lot of chaos in the country, a lot of conflict. And what we need now, not only on the presidential level, but on the Senate level and the House level, candidates who will unite Americans, not divide them. And I think moderate candidates, because the way the system is set up with the party primaries and caucuses, you often get the extremes, both the left and the right. I think it would be nice for Montgomery County, Frederick County, and Carroll County to send a moderate Republican to Congress. It'd be very unusual, for one thing. And it would probably get national attention and hopefully encourage other moderate candidates who want to unify rather than divide the country to run for office. It takes a lot of time, as all the people here can testify, a lot of time running for office, and a lot of people are unfortunately discouraged from doing that. But I believe that the country needs moderates who are willing to unite the country, and that's what my campaign is about.
Thank you. Ms. Gutierrez?
Thank you, thank you. These are indeed critical times, and if you watch the debates, you understand how critical it is for your vote to matter and make the right selections. I think it's time for us to have new voices, as my friend Will says, but new voices that are inclusive, that are tolerant, that know who we are and what are the needs of our community. I was the first Latina ever elected in Maryland, the first Latina, the first Salvadoran American elected in the United States. The largest foreign-born community in Maryland, in Montgomery County, are Salvadorans. I think it's time for us to be able to have a voice and a seat at the table so that the proposals that a Mr. Trump dares to put on the table are simply not acceptable. We have to push back on that kind of thinking and that kind of approaches that would close the door in so many of us. I'm ready from day one to be that candidate to push back. I have the Bold Pack, which is all 26 members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. We'll be ready on day one because we've been working together already. I want to be there to represent all of us in our experience. And I am known as a fighter. I will not sit quietly on the side and wait for other people to give me permission. I don't do that. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you what my passions are. And remember my name. It goes from A to Z. Ana Sol Gutierrez.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Deeply appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all. Will made my speech for me, just about. Running for Congress is because it's a House of Representatives, and it needs to be somebody who truly understands and represents the folks who are in the district. I reached my first $1,000 contribution this week. So it's raising my money $25 and $30 at a time. We need to recognize that it's life experience, like having parents who are going through dementia, having been a part of the community where I've had to bury those who have been taken by violence. I've had the opportunity to nurture and encourage those who have had a difficult time in life. I understand. And this district deserves someone who can represent and understand the challenges of real people, the common people in the district we're representing. And I think I have a good opportunity to do that for us, to be a fresh voice, a new voice, and an opportunity to represent the district and bring the opportunity to truly work at compromise, at working together, at recognizing that the power of this nation has been that we have taken ideas and worked together to make it possible. Thank you. And I approve this message.
Ms. Matthews.
It was my honor to serve you and serve this community for 30 years as a journalist, really going into your neighborhoods and telling the stories of what was happening in your lives and the lives of this community. And then I had the great fortune of working for the past 9 years for a global company, which gave me that global mindset, that opportunity to see how the global economy works and how you create jobs in places like South Africa and Rwanda with innovative business solutions. Business also teaches you problem solving, and I'm very grateful for having that experience. Like many on the panel here, my husband and I came to Washington, him out of the Peace Corps, me out of college with college loans and college debt. We got married, we raised 3 kids, and over 80 years of combined salaries, we're in a position now where I can quit my job and run for Congress full time and really earn your vote by spending the last 9 months talking to you, just like I did as a reporter all those years, to hear your stories and your concerns and be your voice in Congress. But I also am animated in this campaign by the fact that not only do we have a Congress that doesn't have enough minority representation, it doesn't have enough women. 50% of our population is women. 50% of you out there in the audience are women, and the Congress is only 1/5, 20% women. And so I'll yield the rest of my time because that'll show you, it'll demonstrate for you the fact that we do not have enough women's voices in Congress, and we need to build women's voices if we want to build women's choices.
All right. Finally, Mr. Barbe.
Thank you. It's been my great honor to represent you as a member of the legislature. I, as I've said, became the first Indian American elected to any state legislature, the first person of color to be elected chair of the Montgomery delegation, and then to be the majority leader of the Maryland House of Delegates for 12 years. And through it all, though, I've never forgotten my grandfather, the fact that he was stripped of his citizenship in a racist move by the Supreme Court, and that he had to fight to reclaim it. That has been an animating feature of my life in many, many regards. And let me mention that, you know, the Baltimore Sun has described me as a staunch but pragmatic liberal, and I'm very proud of that moniker. But let me say one other thing that hasn't been mentioned and that I think is very, very important. There's only one other Hindu in the United States Congress. I would be the second, and I have been particularly disturbed by the discrimination that has been seen from Donald Trump and others directed against Muslims. And as a Hindu, I have a very keen appreciation of what it's like to be a part of a misunderstood and sometimes despised religious minority. And no one else has mentioned it, so I will. There will simply be no better person to defend people who have minority and misunderstood religious points of view than this Hindu kid who grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. Thank you.
I'd like to thank each of you for making the time to join us this afternoon and for sharing your perspective and views on these various topics with us. I'd like to invite Isaac, our producer, up here now to close out.
The Maryland primary election is on Tuesday, April 26th. Early voting begins on April 14th. Be sure to get out and vote. And I want to thank all the candidates, both Senate and Congressional District 8 for coming. And I want to thank all the elected officials that made it out today. And I want to thank you, the audience, for making this event happen, and thank the viewers for watching. Make sure you get out and vote, and make sure you continue participating in important events such as this in the community. Thank you.